Hey friends, I have a few minutes because the baby is napping. So I have my toddler just outside the room distracted. So I'm just going to sit down and answer some questions I've gotten about putting the kids into public school for the first time. I've gotten a lot of messages, a lot of curiosity. I've been very grateful for how respectful everybody has been because I know, like, I make a lot of homeschooling content. I know there's some people that are really, they like things very polarizing. They like black or white. You do this or you don't. Not everybody is open to open-mindedness, right? So I hesitated whether or not I wanted to actually even film this or share this because this is a very private decision and I'm not going to be able to share every single layer to this because I don't share my kids' private stuff. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought this might be actually relatable to a lot of families and maybe it would actually be beneficial to the homeschooling community. And just because we sent the big kids off to public school now that they're older does not mean we are done homeschooling. But we'll get back into that in this Q&A. So I thought I would sit down for like a question and answer video and just try and cover all the bases. So it's possible that this is the first video of mine you're watching, and if that's the case, hi, my name is Rainbow. I have 4 children and I've been homeschooling for 10 years until this year when both of my oldest kids, who are almost 15 and 11, decided to go to public school. The biggest question was obviously why? Like, why did we decide to put our kids into public school after 10 years of homeschooling? And I answered that in the previous video. I will try and make sure that is linked in the end card of this video when the video ends. It's a video with me sitting, I'm in a white top, and it says something like big changes for our family. At the end of that video, I sit down and I really kind of go into it, and it's like a big sit down chat. So if you really want to hear the details of that, you can go watch that. However, Cliff Notes version, it was a family decision. It was something we were thinking about for my oldest daughter, especially because high school was here and we had been homeschooling and going through the motions of starting to earn credits early, because in homeschool you can do that a year early. So we had started that process and it was a good taste for us to see, like, will homeschooling high school actually work for us? Where I live, very specifically, I live in Alberta, Canada, and everywhere you homeschool is going to be different. We have different rules, different things we have to do. We have a school facilitator when we homeschool here. You have to have a school facilitator. One is assigned to you. Now, we've had the same amazing facilitator for our entire homeschooling experience, and I will go back to her when it is time for the little kids to start schooling again. And a facilitator just supports you and helps you navigate all of the challenges that can come with homeschooling. And really, this decision started to get murky once we really started looking into a diploma. Now, can you get a homeschool high school diploma? Yes, you can. Do you have to jump through the hoops to do like what the government expects each public school child to do to get a diploma? Also, yes. So once we started really talking to my daughter and she started really thinking about it, she decided that she does not only want a diploma, but she needs an academic diploma. And this is basically, you can reach for a diploma and you can do the base level math, base level sciences, all that kind of stuff, and achieve a diploma, which is fine. But she wants to go on to university at this point in time, and so we have to prepare for what she wants now. Now, could that change? Absolutely. But in a nutshell, the process to get her academically to where she needed to be to receive the diploma that she wanted for the courses she wanted to take in university at this time was something that was going to be very, very difficult to achieve for us at home. And a lot of factors go into that decision. We have a neurospicy house. Almost everybody has some sort of neurospiciness. We have ADHD, we have autism, we have dyslexia, all very high functioning, high masking. However, they do present educational challenges. So homeschooling for those things has been great in some ways and challenging in others. And so when we combine that with the fact that we also wanted our kids to have some, maybe go through soft challenges, some experiences that really challenge them, homeschooling them has given them this gift of not really having to face too many challenges because everything is catered to them, which is awesome. But especially for some of my children, we had a choice whether or not we face these challenges when we were a little bit younger. Will we have more support of the family and more backbone at home, or do we face these challenges when we're an adult and when it is more challenging and when things will just be a little bit trickier? Now, obviously, I'm not saying everything because it's not my story to share. However, these decisions really factored in, and then I actually thought we were just going to chug forward with the homeschooling high school. And I'm talking about my daughter's high school experience the most because this is what triggered everything. And then, a few things happened this summer where we were really like, maybe we should try this. And it was a family discussion, and it wasn't what she actually wanted to do at first, but she's so smart and she understands so deeply. She can pull herself outside of what she's dealing with and actually look at the bigger picture. Even though it was scary and new and she would have to be very brave to make this choice, she knew that the challenges she was experiencing were only going to get more challenging, and it was only going to be tougher, and it was only going to strain what was already being strained for her. So she made the choice, and as a family, my husband and I were like, maybe this is actually worth trying. Let's really be open-minded about this. And then after a discussion one night in the summer, she was like, I think you're right, but it scares me. And so we went from there. And then in that discussion, my 11-year-old son, he had tried public school for 3 days last year, and it was a flop. It was awful. I have a video on it. Most of that had to do with the teacher, but simply he just wasn't ready. And I don't think that experience would have gone well if we would have pushed it or if we would have gone any further. I'm so comfortable with the fact that we made the right choice at that right time. But since he tried public school for those 3 days, it's been on his mind, and he's been giving me little tidbits, little drops in the water all year about maybe I would like to try it again. He's very social, very sporty. He is my social butterfly child. My oldest two are very, very different. And so when he found out that his big sister was going to try public high school, he was like, well, I kind of want to do public school again. Can I go? And he asked us, and we've always said we will give them the choice. So it was time to put our money where our mouth is, and we said yes. If you're serious about it and you really want to do this, then we will support you and you can go. And so that is how my two oldest kids wound up going to public school this year. Now, I don't know how much of that conversation I actually cut out because I am a chatter, but here we are. So that's the big why. So I got a really interesting question, and this video is probably going to be a little bit long because I'm trying to explain deeply, but again, I'm a talker, so sorry. So I got this question in a few different ways, and I wrote it down. And so the question was basically sorry, I'm reading just off camera. I've got my computer screen tilted so I can read all these questions so I don't forget. But what's your perspective on homeschooling for the majority of childhood and then transitioning to public school in middle school or high school? And what age do you see your little kids moving into school, if at all? This is a great question, and I think this is what most people were curious about. I feel like this answer will only get more in depth as time passes. We're only 3 weeks into the school year now, and I'm going to answer this in more detail in the next question, but they are thriving, and it's been a very peaceful experience to watch them thrive in this way, especially when it was very scary for our family. It was new. It was brand new territory. So originally my husband and I had only ever planned to homeschool up until high school because homeschooling high school is very intimidating, especially if your kids want to do heavily academic stuff. That's where I think it gets a little, if your kid is going into the trades or something, it's a different story than if your kid needs some sort of bachelor degree or something. Now, can you do that at home? Yes, you can, but it requires an entire different workload for the entire family. And that is also kind of what we had to consider too, is we have started having babies again. I am only human. I am not a super mom, and I can't do everything. So we were also balancing that in our decision, and that was huge. And that was really hard for me to come to be really honest with myself and be like, what can I handle and what can't I handle? And do I want to handle everything? Just because I can, is this what I want as well? So that came into play as well. Something I've experienced is immense gratitude for the amount of years that we did homeschool our children. I don't know if they're going to continue with public school the entire time, but for right now, they're really loving it, and they're saying, yes, we are not going back to homeschool. And so just taking that from their perspective right now, I'm so grateful that we set them up in this way, because already 3 weeks in, we've had teachers notice that they are homeschooled. They are like, oh, this kind of makes sense. Okay. Where they are in some of their subjects and how easy some of their subjects are for them because they've just been able to work at their own pace up until this point. All of that educational stuff aside, there's pros and cons to public schooling. There's pros and cons to exposing your children to like kind of the masses, I guess. And I just am so grateful that we gave them this strong childhood foundation. While their minds were very easily shaped, while they were still growing, while they were still learning about the world around them, we were able to gift them with this childhood that was full of, especially for us, we do like Waldorf elementary inspired schooling. And so they were really able to develop a love of learning and a strong sense of character, a strong sense of self, a strong sense of right and wrong according to their own internal compass. We were able to instill a strong sense of family values in them, and I think that is serving them so beautifully now that they are in public school. There have been a lot of things that your kids are going to get exposed to when you put them in that situation where not everybody is being monitored all the time, not everybody is being watched, and everybody is coming from a different background, and everybody is being parented differently. Watching my kids, and especially, like, I had no worries about my oldest with this because she is older, she is so sure of herself. Like, that has been a gift. Going into high school as a beautiful young woman is tough, right? And she is navigating it beautifully, and she is so sure in who she is, so strong in that resolve. She's had a lot of experiences in the last probably 6 months to a year that could have really shaken that, and it just has not. It has just rooted her deeper. And so it's really shown us, like, and shown her that she can do hard things and she can stay who she is and be faced with challenges and overcome them and thrive in them. So that has been a gift as a mom, to like watch my teenage daughter just be brilliant going out there. It's not something I had when I was young, and watching that in her is just this beautiful, beautiful gift. Yeah, I don't want to get emotional about that, so I'm gonna just kind of stop there. With my son, he's a little bit younger and he's more outgoing. He has no issue with me sharing his specific neurospiciness, but he has like really intense ADHD. For him, I was like, okay, there's some extra challenges there. Let's see how this goes. But he has been really learning lately about integrity and about how you stand in your own integrity, and watching him navigate these challenges where he's being faced with difficult situations or kids who want to expose him to things that we don't find appropriate in our family or things like that, and seeing how he's handling them is been really, really amazing to watch. He's not going to get everything right, nobody will, but I see the experience of homeschooling him and putting that foundation in him, and I can see it play out now that he wants to spread some wings. We've given him very deep roots, and I'm so grateful to homeschooling for those deep roots that were allowed to be set into my children. Just with the difficulties and the logistics of high school, I think, like, even for my son, I think we had kind of made that decision. I think we just do not homeschool high school. Maybe that's a hard thing that we just cut off. And obviously for the individual child, that will always be open to looking at what that might look like. And if this doesn't work for my daughter, we have a plan B and things like that. However, in the ideal perfect world, I think based on this experience, we will probably do elementary and homeschool until, that junior high school level. I think I would homeschool until high school, preferably. But if one of my other children is going to be like my son and really craving the extracurriculars and the companionship and that I can't give him as a homeschool parent and teacher, then we would evaluate that. But I think, like, it's that sweet spot at 11 years old. Before that, he really wasn't ready, and now he really has the meat that he needs to navigate these challenges. So I can't say for sure what exact age I will put my younger kids into the public school system, or maybe something crazy will change and we won't do that at all. But at this point where it stands, I can see us giving them the choice around 11, 12, that 6th, 7th grade, that junior high time. Okay, lots of questions about how my kids have transitioned, especially those who were around last year when Grayson tried and it was just that absolute flop. So how are your kids adjusting so far? And a lot of people ask, are there any surprises or anything? I'm not surprised, but I'm just so grateful how much they are thriving. I also got asked what's been the hardest adjustment for them or for me as a mom. So I'm going to answer these in a little bit of a group. So they are legitimately thriving. My son has just been coasting. He has to learn a little bit more that introvert skill of like, okay, I've had too much people, it's time to rest up. And he is learning that. I'm noticing week 1, he was like going out and playing with all his neighborhood friends, because this kid makes friends with everybody and anybody. He is just like everybody's best friend. It's just his personality. I love this about him. And at first he was like, okay, go to school, do school stuff. And like that kid has not come home with homework. He finishes everything in class like way before it needs to. He's acing tests. I'm like, good for you, bud. Like, this is amazing to see. And then he's been coming home and being like, hey, out with my other friends who go to different schools or who are homeschooled, and he's hanging out with everybody. And then in week 2, he was like, ooh, maybe I'm gonna slow down a little bit and take some time to myself. So now he comes home and he makes a tea or a hot chocolate, and he cozies up on the couch and watches a little bit of TV and just kind of calms down from the day. So watching that has been really nice. But that's part of growing as a human and discovering things about yourself. Also being presented the opportunity and the challenge to learn new things about yourself, you know? For my daughter, she has been doing so well. There were some hiccups in the her first day was a little bit overwhelming. You know, going to high school is overwhelming in general. She's never used a locker before. Never had to do like a lock combination. That was tricky. Her anxiety personally is higher, and so there were some panicky things there, but like her first day was probably the rockiest in the morning, and then by the afternoon she was like, actually I had a really good day, and it turned around. And she's very introverted, very quiet, very shy, but she is now making friends, and that was a big thing for her. I'm not going to speak to this too much, but in our community, we don't have homeschool co-ops that I could just put my kids in. We are too far away from the big city to make that worth going in. Yes, we have homeschool groups. I even ran a homeschool group and still do technically here, and it was a social group for kids. The issue is like people kind of are flaky. Homeschoolers can be pretty flaky. They don't always want to show up to everything. Some of them don't like mornings. Some of them won't show up to anything until 1 p.m. It is what it is. It's just kind of the community, but there wasn't really, especially for her age group, there weren't a lot of homeschool teenagers. So the opportunity for friendships and things like that were a lot lower. And then when you're already a teenager, it's really difficult to put yourself in a position to make friends. It's not cool anymore to just be like, hey, you want to be friends? So that was a really big decision in putting her into high school, because she was getting lonely, and she was starting to learn that the friend group that she had made maybe wasn't the best for her going forward, and maybe meeting some new people would be good. So that has been a really wonderful gift. And like, I feel like as homeschoolers, we always be like, socialization, like that's fine. And I've said this before too, because for the majority of the time it is true. But I think it's important as homeschool parents that when something is not working, we can recognize it and we can understand that, hey, this is an important thing that my child needs. And if it's not happening in the homeschool community, then maybe we need to look elsewhere for this, or maybe we need to put them in something different that will give them the opportunities to like explore that and meet that need that isn't able to be met at home. Does that make sense? I just feel like this whole experience has been both humbling, but I feel like I live my life this way. If something doesn't work, we pivot and we do something else. It's just what you do. But like, always be changing your mind. It's okay. It's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to think differently as this person than you did as that person 10 years ago. Those things are okay. I used to think that I was contradicting myself and I couldn't change my mind. I couldn't speak about changing my mind because, I don't know, I would like bring shame to myself or feel like people would think I'm flaky, and maybe people do, but I don't care. What people's opinion of me is none of my business. I understand now that my job is to grow, and to grow is to change your mind and change what you do and learn. When you know better, you do better. And, you know, that's a whole other rant, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So that was a big thing too. So she is doing really, really well, making friends. She's joined theater, which is awesome and so fun for Cody and I, because Cody and I met in that high school in theater in a play that we were cast as romantic leads in. That's how Cody and I met, and that is the origin story of us. So she actually has several teachers that taught us, which is really cool and just kind of fun. But so far, even though she's experiencing challenges of high school and it's a whole new territory, suddenly having 8 hours of classes, and we were very chill homeschoolers, so it is different for her. She is thriving. She's doing really well. She's getting in the subject that she really needed help in. She's getting support there that I was not able to give her at home. It feels like a breath for everyone, and we'll see how it goes. We'll take it day by day. We'll take it week by week. But right now, she's doing really well, and even when she comes across a challenging situation, she's like, this is still the right choice for me. And that alone shows me that, like, we have done the work. We've done what we needed to do, and now here she is growing her wings and starting to flap them, you know? Okay, again, this is going to be long, but if you're here because you care to hear about stuff like this. You're probably interested in this topic, so I'm just going to keep chatting. The hardest adjustment for me as a mom has just been missing my kids. We have never been apart. It's been us. Like, obviously we've been apart. But I've been homeschooling my kids every day for 10 years. Since Mackenzie was in kindergarten, I've been homeschooling her. Before that even, because we did preschool at home. I have an awake baby. Okay, I don't know exactly where I left off, but I think I'm going to be interrupted with an awake baby. I think they've got a cold, and I think they're coming down with one anyway. I don't know. We'll see. So he might just come join me for the last little bit of this video. I don't remember exactly where I left off, but I do remember I was talking about how we just miss being together. It is really weird not having them with me after having them with me all the time. Not planning homeschool days and homeschool curriculum is really, really strange. But I will share, it has also been extremely peaceful, like knowing that they are confident in the decision and that we are confident in the decision. As much as I miss them, knowing that they are having these experiences and they are having fun and they're enjoying themselves helps so much. And also, it has really been interesting for me because, again, I have been doing curriculum and our entire day has been homeschooling for like 5 days a week for 10 years. So this is the first time in 10 years that I've had a break and I can just be. Obviously, I still have 2 toddlers, but just going down to 2 toddlers and going to the library and having play dates and being able to just do toddler stuff is such a huge break for me, and it's so strange. So that has been really weird. And yeah, as much as I could stay sad about missing the big kids, knowing that they are thriving and that this is like a next step in our life, and this is a next step in motherhood of, you know, you give your kids roots and so that they can grow wings, and you have to let them start flying off, and it is part of the process. And so I'm just kind of sitting in it and accepting it. But it's been very strange. Probably the biggest adjustment, then the hardest adjustment is what the question was. Yeah, just missing them. Like, just them not being around is weird. It's really weird. And then obviously, I'm not gonna lie, adjusting to school time and school times in general has been tough. Just because homeschool families, they're quite like chill, mornings are relaxed, so it's still pretty chill, and it has given me the kick in the pants I need to get up early like I wanted to do anyway, and I just was sleeping with my babies. Sometimes my alarm goes off in the morning and I have to get up, and I'm like, well, like, could I let my kids get ready for school and head out the door without me while I sleep? Yeah, could they do that? I'm not going to let that happen, though. I go and I help them pack their lunch, and I give them kisses, and I make sure they have breakfast, and it's just, yeah. So that's been a bit of a challenge, is just adjusting to the time. And I mentioned this, okay, so this question was like, do you feel like homeschooling actually prepared them well for public school? And yes, I already talked about this, so I'm not going to touch on this too much, but yeah, I really do think that the foundation we set with homeschooling gave them all of these things that they needed to navigate public school in a way that still honored everything that was important to our family, everything that is important that they have, and the tools that they have, important to me that I give them as a mom. And not only that, but like from an education standpoint, I'm really grateful for homeschooling because I'm already noticing like they're quite ahead of their peers, and even if they're learning something new, their approach to learning is giving them an edge. The way they approach a new topic is helping them so far. So we'll see how that goes. I really, really do think homeschooling prepared them well for this stage. Is there anything I miss about homeschooling the big kids? Yeah, just doing it. Like just having them home, our little rhythms, our routines, mornings, like reading to them while we drink coffee and whatever, and just that togetherness, being able to help them with things or when they learn something, or all those fun pieces of homeschool that I really enjoy about the earlier years of just those rhythms of like, yeah, the morning baskets and things like that. I do miss that. So you probably have heard, this is the last question I'm going to answer because my baby's just kind of sitting there deciding if he's going to go back to sleep. I don't know. But do you still plan to homeschool your younger ones, and will you keep sharing homeschooling videos? So I think you've heard that answer laced into the previous answers and questions. But yeah, I do plan to homeschool still and continue to homeschool. My little ones will be homeschooled through their elementary years unless something crazy happens. Never say never is what I have humbly come to learn. But yeah, that's the plan, is to continue to homeschool them. I will probably still continue using Blossom and Root for once they get into the elementary years because I really genuinely love that curriculum. And we have that up to grade 6. After that, we'll kind of see where each kid is at and where we're at as a family. Now, could that change in the future? Of course it could, but at where it stands right now, I plan to be homeschooling my little group of little ones through their elementary years, which is going to be fun because they're a little closer in age, and so we're gonna kind of be doing it together. And of course, yes, I will be sharing that, and I will be sharing these homeschooling content still because I am interested to see how I teach things and what decisions I make differently. We've gone through the elementary years once with the older two, and now doing it a second time. This is an opportunity for me to make any changes or do something a little bit different, and I will continue sharing those things. So if there's anything you ever want to see or hear about, let me know. I also didn't start creating homeschool content until my kids were in the middle elementary years, and so I've never done homeschool content for preschool. I've never really gotten into talking about what Waldorf preschool and Waldorf early years looks like for us. And we're not purists, Waldorf purists or anything. Waldorfish, right? We take inspiration from Waldorf. I really like some of the foundations. And I have some really great like preschool resources to use and kind of curriculums to go off of. And next year, I think we'll dive into that more. My little ones are just 1 and 2.5. And so it's just not necessary this year, but next year we're going to dabble in some preschool activities probably, but that's just because that's what I do with little ones this age. And then next year we might do more intentional like Waldorf-based preschooling things. So yeah, definitely more content ahead, and I'm excited to kind of have on my channel this space where there's all of this older stuff, but now the younger part is going to come in, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. So thank you for sitting down if you've made it this far and watching all of this and listening to all of this. I hope this was helpful or insightful. And again, I was hesitant to share because I was nervous about how the homeschool community was going to receive me, but I think that's part of why this conversation is important, because when something stops working, you should be able to do something different. When homeschooling isn't working anymore, you should be able to pivot without feeling bad, and there's so many different options. But I think it's important as parents and as homeschooling parents to be able to objectively look at what is happening in our family, what is happening with our children's education, and be able to really face ourselves and ask ourselves, is this actually benefiting my child to the maximum of its ability? Is this the best choice for my child still? Is this still the best choice for my family? And, sometimes that answer is no, it's not anymore. Sometimes that answer is, you know what, they're not actually thriving educationally anymore because you're struggling to teach them, or, there's so many pros and cons. And maybe I'll break this down into a smaller video sometime and post it on Instagram or something, or TikTok, where I maybe I'll talk about like what I found as pros and cons the later we went into our homeschooling journey. But I think these things are very important to constantly review, and that's what we were doing in the last years, especially in the last couple years with my daughter as she got closer and closer to high school. It was like, okay, every year, is this still working? Is this like reevaluate everything? Do we enjoy this as a family? Is this hurting our relationship at all? Is this hurting relationship with your siblings at all? By like, is this educationally working for you? Is this going to be able to meet the goals that you have for yourself, for your education as you grow? All those questions are really important, and I think it can be very easy to let the ego block you and be like, no, I've decided to homeschool, and so now I just have to homeschool, because that is not good for anybody if it's not actually working. So anyway, just my little PSA, my little piece of advice, but I hope this was interesting for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one, guys.